Zaria was the kind of woman who made heads turn wherever she walked. In the market, men forgot what they came to buy. On the street, drivers slowed down just to look twice. Flowers arrived at her door almost every evening. Small boxes with ribbons followed. Promises floated around her like perfume. Welcome to the sweetest African folktale stories, where we bring to you the sweetest folk tales to nourish your mind and soul. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications bell so we can grow together, sweet folks. I have never seen anyone like you, one man once told her. You are too beautiful to be real, another whispered. Zaria would only smile, soft and polite, but inside she was always watching, always measuring. She never chose easily. Every man who came close had to pass her silent tests. One evening, a tall banker named Kade took her to dinner. The restaurant lights were dim and warm. He kept staring at her flawless skin. "You are perfect," he said, "like a painting." That night, when he dropped her home, she pretended to fall asleep on her couch without wiping off her makeup. In the morning, when he called her on video, she answered. He laughed lightly. "You don't need all that paint on your face. I want to see the real you." Zaria's smile did not fade. "Is that so?" she asked gently. "Yes, a woman should be natural." She ended the call soon after. He never heard from her again. To him, it was a small request. To her, it was the end. She had one rule. No one could ever see her without makeup. No one. And she guarded that rule with her life. Another man, a playful businessman named Sade, invited her to the beach. "The water is calm today," he said. "Let's swim." "I don't like water," Zaria replied firmly. He laughed. "Come on, don't be scared." "I said I don't like water." But Sade grabbed her wrist playfully and tried to pull her closer to the waves. "Just a little splash won't hurt," he teased. Zaria's eyes turned cold. She pulled her hand away sharply. "That's enough." He sent her messages later that night. "You overreacted. It was just fun. Let me see you tomorrow." She blocked him. There were others too. Men who begged to see her natural face. Men who said, "If you love me, you'll trust me." Men who promised marriage but demanded proof of her bare skin first. The moment they asked, her heart shut like a locked door. People talked. "She's proud," some said. "She thinks she's better than everyone," others whispered. "She's vain." But they did not understand. To Zaria, her makeup was not beautiful. It was protection. It was armor. Without it, she felt naked in a way clothes could never fix. Every morning and every night, she sat at her dressing table. Powders, brushes, creams, lipsticks, everything lined up neatly under a bright lamp. She painted her face carefully, layer by layer. "This is me," she would whisper to her reflection. "This is who they love." And deep inside, fear lived quietly behind her perfect smile. Zaria's dressing table looked like a small shop. Bottles stood in straight lines, brushes rested in clean cups, powders shimmered under the yellow light of her lamp. Nothing was ever out of place. Every morning she woke before sunrise. She would sit in front of the mirror and begin her work. First the cream, then the powder, then the careful blending around her cheeks. She moved slowly, like an artist afraid to make a mistake. "No shaking," she would murmur to herself. "Steady hands." She wore makeup to the market. She wore it when she stayed home alone. She even wore it to bed. Once, when she fell sick with fever, her cousin Mira rushed to see her. "You look weak," Mira said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Rest." "Wait," she whispered. "Pass me my powder." "You're burning with heat." "Please." Even in sickness, she reached for her mirror before letting anyone look at her face. To Zaria, a face without makeup did not exist. It was not part of the world. It was something hidden, something dangerous. Sometimes she would stare at herself for hours. Her smooth cheeks, her bright lips, her long dark lashes. "This is who I am," she would say softly. "If I lose this, I lose everything." Her friends often joked. "One day," Mira laughed once, "they will bury you with lipstick in your hand." Zaria laughed with them. But deep inside, the thought of anyone seeing her bare face filled her with quiet terror. Her beauty was her power, her mask, her life. Among all the men who admired her, one was different. His name was Rami. He wasn't loud like the others, not flashy, not desperate to impress. He was calm, steady, and patient. When he first approached her at a small garden cafe, he did not comment on her beauty. Instead, he asked her, "What makes you happy?" Zaria blinked, surprised. "What?" "I mean," he smiled gently, "what do you enjoy doing when no one is watching?" She studied him carefully. Most men talked about her eyes or her lips. Rami talked about her dreams. They began meeting often. He never came with flowers, he came with books. "I thought you might like this," he would say, placing a novel on the table. He listened when she spoke, truly listened. He asked about her childhood, her fears, her plans. When they walked together, he never tried to touch her face. He never asked to see her without makeup. He never made jokes about natural beauty. One evening, under a quiet sky, he said softly, "I don't want to rush you. I just want to know you." Those words settled in her heart like warmth. With him, she thought, I am safe. For the first time in years, she felt less afraid. Maybe she had finally found a man who would not test her rule. Maybe she had found someone who loved her exactly as she chose to be seen. Slowly, carefully, she began to love him back. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. Zaria and Rami were often seen in quiet places, small cafes, late evening walks where the streetlights glowed softly above them. "You're different," Rami told her one night as they sat on a bench. "In what way?" she asked carefully. "You don't chase noise, you don't compete for attention, you're calm." She smiled faintly. If only he knew. Rami never pressured her, never demanded more than she was willing to give. When he held her hand, it was gentle. When he spoke about the future, his voice was steady. "I want a home," he said one evening, "a simple one. Laughter, peace, someone I can grow old with." Grow old? The words passed through her like a silent wind. She turned her face away slightly. "You think about tomorrow a lot," she said. "I do," he replied. "Don't you?" She hesitated. "I think about today." He laughed softly. "That's why we balance each other." With him, she felt secure. He never questioned her makeup, never asked about it, never tested her rule. So when he finally said, "Marry me, Zaria," she did not hesitate. "Yes," she answered. And for the first time in many years, she believed she had found something real. Their wedding day arrived with music and bright lights. The hall was filled with guests dressed in fine clothes. Laughter floated in the air. Zaria looked flawless. Her dress shimmered, her face glowed under careful layers of powder and paint. People whispered as she passed, "She looks unreal. She's like a queen." Rami stood proudly beside her, smiling as if he had won the greatest treasure on earth. "You are the most beautiful bride I have ever seen," he whispered. She held his hand tightly. "Thank you." The vows were spoken, rings exchanged, applause filled the hall. By evening, the guests had left. The music faded, the lights dimmed. Now it was just the two of them. They entered their room quietly. Candles flickered along the walls. The air felt warm and heavy with celebration. Rami laughed as he lifted her into his arms. "Finally," he said, "you are mine." She smiled, but when he leaned close to kiss her cheek, she turned her face slightly away, a small habit, a lifelong reflex. He did not notice. "Tonight is ours," he said happily. "I have waited so long." And then it happened. His foot caught the edge of the carpet. In one sudden moment, he slipped. He fell hard, his head striking the wooden side of the bed. The sound echoed sharply through the room. Rami dropped to the floor, silent. Zaria froze. Then panic broke through her like fire. "Zaria!" screamed Zaria as she rushed to his side. He lay still on the floor, eyes closed, blood slowly forming near his headline. "No, no, no, no," she whispered, shaking him gently. "Wake up, please wake up." Her hands trembled as she pressed them against his wound. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. "I can't lose you," she cried. "Not tonight, please." Her tears rolled down her cheeks, cutting through the layers of powder.
Thin lines formed across her face, washing away the smooth glow she had built. But she did not notice. For the first time in years, she forgot about her face. All she saw was the man she loved lying still on the floor. "Please, God," she whispered through broken breaths. "Not him. Take anything else." Rami groaned softly. Her heart jumped. His fingers twitched. Slowly, painfully, his eyes opened. "Rami?" she breathed in relief. "You are awake." But as his vision cleared, his expression changed. He blinked once, twice. His brows tightened. "Zaria?" he whispered weakly. "Yes, it's me," she said quickly, leaning closer. He stared at her face. His lips trembled. What happened to you?" Zaria froze. Her hand slowly moved to her cheek. She felt it. Not smooth, not firm.
Her fingers traced deep lines she had not felt in decades. Her heart stopped. The powder was breaking apart under her tears. Her mask was fading. Rami struggled to sit up, wincing in pain, but his eyes remained fixed on her. You're not," he stammered. How old are you?" She covered her face with both hands. "No," she whispered. "No, no." He pushed himself backward until his back hit the wall. The young bride he had carried minutes ago was gone. Before him sat a woman with wrinkled skin, trembling lips, and thinning gray hair showing through cracked powder. "This isn't real," he muttered. "This can't be real." She crawled toward him, tears falling faster now. "I'm still me," she cried. "Rami, please." He shook his head in disbelief. "Who are you?" Those words cut deeper than any blade. "I'm Zaria," she said desperately. "I'm still Zaria." But with every tear that fell, more of her hidden years appeared. Her true face, the one she had buried beneath layers of powder for so long, was rising, and there was no stopping it now. Rami's breathing grew heavy. "This is a trick. Tell me this is a trick." Zaria shook her head slowly. Her hands trembled as she lowered them from her face. "I wanted to tell you. I didn't know how." "You didn't know how?" His voice rose in disbelief. "Zaria, I married you tonight." She crawled closer, her back slightly bent now, her once firm posture slowly collapsing. "Please listen to me before you walk away. Please." Rami's hand searched blindly for the door handle behind him. His body shook, part pain from the fall, part fear from what he was seeing. "You look," he swallowed hard, "you look older than my grandmother." The words hit her like stones. Tears streamed down her face again, and with them more of the powder dissolved completely. Deep folds marked her cheeks. The smooth glow vanished. Thin gray strands slipped free from beneath her styled hair. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "Then explain," he demanded. "Explain what I'm looking at." The candles flickered, shadows dancing wildly across the walls. Zaria closed her eyes. "It started when I was 35, she said softly. "I was once engaged." Rami's chest rose sharply. "I loved him. I trusted him, and he left me for a younger woman." Her voice cracked. "I broke into pieces. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every mirror became my enemy." Rami remained silent, but his eyes remained fixed on her face. "One night, I walked far outside the city. I didn't care where I was going. I just wanted the pain to stop." "And?" he asked cautiously. "And I met her." "Met who?" "An old woman, alone, sitting beside a dying fire." Rami frowned. "What are you saying?" She looked at me and said, "You fear growing old. You fear being replaced." Zaria swallowed.
I asked her how she knew. She said pain has a smell, and mine was strong. Rami's hand tightened against the door. She offered me a powder, she whispered. She said it would keep me young, that no man would ever leave me for someone younger again. Rami's face hardened. You believed her? I was broken, she said sharply. Broken people believe impossible things. And the price? He asked. Her silence answered him first. The rule, she finally said, was that I must never cry for a man, no matter what happened. Rami's voice dropped to a whisper. And if you did? She looked down at her trembling hands. The youth would leave me. The room grew very still. Rami's heart pounded loudly in his ears. How long? He asked slowly. How long have you been wearing that mask? Zaria lifted her tear-stained face and met his eyes. I'm 100 years old. The words hung in the air like smoke. Rami stared at her, his lips slightly open. 100? He repeated faintly. She nodded. I stopped aging at 35. The powder kept me frozen in time. And the men before me? He asked carefully. They grew old. That's normal, he said sharply. They grew old, she repeated, her voice heavier now. And they died. Rami's stomach tightened. How many? She did not answer immediately. Zaria, he demanded. Enough, she whispered. Enough to know what it feels like to be loved. Enough to know what it feels like to watch someone fade while I remain the same. Rami's breathing grew uneven. You watched them die? I told myself it was not my fault, she cried. Time kills everyone. But not you, he replied coldly. She shook her head slowly. Not me. And you felt nothing? I felt everything, she cried. But I never cried, not once, because the moment I did, this would happen. She gestured weakly to her aged face. Rami pressed his palm against his forehead. You used them, he said quietly. I was afraid of being alone, she replied. I thought if I stayed young, no one would leave me. And yet, he said bitterly, you never stayed with any of them long enough to grow old together. Her silence confirmed it. Rami slowly pulled himself up to his feet, still unsteady. You should have told me, he said. I was going to, she replied quickly. I wanted to, but you loved me the way I was. I didn't want to lose that. You already lost it, he said. His voice wasn't loud. It was worse. It hurt. Zaria felt her chest tighten. I truly loved you, she whispered. For the first time, I didn't want to just feel admired. I wanted to stay. And you thought lying was the way to do that? I was protecting myself. No, he said firmly. You were protecting your fear. The room felt colder. Zaria suddenly gasped. Her skin began tightening further, folding deeper. Her hands trembled harder. Her back bent more. Rami watched in horror as the change continued. Her face aged again before his eyes. 100 years became more. Her voice weakened. It's happening faster. Why? He asked. Because I broke the rule. I cried. I cried for you. The candles flickered wildly as if reacting to her words. Rami stepped backward instinctively. Her hair thinned more, falling in pale strands onto the floor. Stop, she begged weakly, though she knew it could not stop. Her youth, stolen for decades, was returning to time, and time was collecting its debt. Her breathing became shallow. Rami, she called weakly, reaching toward him. Rami stood frozen, torn between fear and pity. Her hands, now thin and shaking, stretched out again. I never meant to become this, she whispered. I only wanted love, just once, without fear. Her skin sagged further. Deep shadows formed under her eyes. Her body seemed to shrink inside her wedding dress. Rami's heart pounded. This is madness. This can't be real. But it was real. Right in front of him. Zaria's voice cracked like dry leaves. Time waited for me for decades. Now it is taking everything back. Her age seemed to double within moments. Her shoulders collapsed inward. Her spine curved painfully. Help me, she breathed. Rami took one cautious step forward, then stopped. I don't know who you are, he said helplessly. Her eyes filled again, but no more tears came. They had already done their damage. I am still the woman who laughed with you, the one who listened to your dreams. But you hid the truth, he replied. Yes, she admitted, and truth always finds its way out. Her fingers scraped weakly across the floor as she tried to move closer. Don't let me die alone, she said softly. Those words struck him hard. For a moment, silence swallowed the room. Then her body trembled violently. Her skin tightened over fragile bones. Her breathing turned rough and uneven. I can feel it, she whispered. It's finished. Rami stared as her face changed again, beyond old age now, beyond 100 years. Her voice became thin, almost air. I should have chosen honesty, but fear was louder. Rami's jaw tightened. You chose control, he replied quietly. You thought
beauty would save you. I thought youth meant safety, she corrected weakly. And did it? He asked. She tried to smile. No, she admitted. Her body grew smaller against the floor, trembling less with each passing second. For years, she whispered, men looked at my face, but no one saw my fear. Rami swallowed hard. You never gave them the chance. She nodded faintly. I was tired of being replaced. And now? He asked. Her fading eyes searched his face one last time. Now I understand, she breathed. Love is not staying young. It is staying true. Her hand lifted weakly toward him again. Rami hesitated, then slowly stepped closer. But before his fingers could reach hers, her body stilled. The trembling stopped. The room fell silent. Zaria lay motionless on the floor, her face that of a frail woman aged beyond her stolen years. The candles burned low. Rami stood there, staring at the lifeless body of the bride he had married only hours ago. The goddess he thought he knew had vanished. In her place was the truth she had hidden for decades, and the silence in that room felt heavier than any scream. Rami did not move for a long time. The silence pressed against his ears until it felt loud. Zaria? He said softly. No answer. He knelt slowly beside her fragile body. The grand wedding dress now looked too big for her thin frame. This can't be how it ends, he whispered. But it had ended. Her hand lay open on the floor, small and cold. The same hand that had once held him with warmth now looked like it belonged to someone from another century. Rami closed his eyes tightly. You should have trusted me, he said under his breath. You should have told me. The candles flickered again, almost dying. He looked around the room, the flowers, the decorations, the bed that was meant to begin their life together. Everything felt like a cruel joke. Hours ago, people cheered. Now there was only a body and a truth too heavy to carry. Rami stood slowly. His legs were still weak from the fall, but the pain in his head was nothing compared to the weight in his chest. You wanted to never be alone, and now... He couldn't finish the sentence. Outside, the night remained calm. The world did not know what had happened inside that room, and time, the very thing she had tried to escape, moved forward without apology. Morning light slowly crept through the curtains. Rami had not slept. He sat in a chair across from her body, staring at the face that once looked impossibly young. Now he saw the truth clearly. She was afraid. Not evil, afraid. Afraid of wrinkles, afraid of being replaced, afraid of being unwanted.
He remembered the way she would gently turn her face away when he leaned in too close. He remembered how carefully she guarded her dressing table. He remembered the way she avoided water, sweat, and tears. It was never vanity, he whispered to himself. It was fear. He stood and walked slowly to the mirror where she had prepared herself earlier that evening. The powders and brushes were still neatly arranged. He picked up one small container and stared at it. "So this was your shield," he said quietly. He placed it back down. "You didn't need it with me," he added, although now the words meant nothing, because trust, once buried under lies, is difficult to revive, and love, when built on illusion, struggles to survive the light of truth. Rami looked back at her one last time. He felt anger, he felt pity, but above all, he felt loss, not just of a wife, but of the life he believed he was beginning. Later that day, when the house was no longer filled with wedding music but with whispers, Rami gave only one explanation. "She passed in the night," he said quietly. No one questioned further. Grief has a way of closing conversations. The guests who had danced hours earlier now spoke in hushed tones. How tragic. So sudden. Rami said little. He did not speak about powder. He did not speak about a century of hidden years. Some truths are too strange for the world. But inside him, the lesson burned clearly. He walked home alone that evening after everything was done. The streets looked ordinary. Cars passed, people laughed, life continued. But something inside him had shifted forever. He paused outside a shop window and caught his reflection. Lines would one day form on his face. His hair would one day turn gray. And for the first time, he did not fear it. Growing old suddenly felt honest, real, human. He thought of Zaria's final words. "Love is not staying young. It is staying true." He exhaled slowly. She had learnt that truth too late, and he paid the price for her fear. The world still turns, beauty still fades, but truth remains. Weeks passed, but Rami could not escape the memory of that night. Sleep became difficult. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw his face changing, youth melting into age, age collapsing into dust. One evening, he returned to the house they were meant to share. It had been locked since the burial. The air inside felt stale. Her dressing table remained untouched. The powders still lined up in perfect order, brushes clean, mirror polished. He stood before it for a long moment. "You were fighting time," he murmured, "but time always wins." His fingers hovered over the small container she had called her shield. He hesitated. Then he opened it. Inside was the same pale powder, light, harmless looking, almost ordinary. "This?" he whispered. "This ruined everything?" He remembered her words. "The rule is never to cry for a man." His jaw tightened. "So you trained yourself not to feel fully, just to survive." He closed the container slowly. For a brief second, just one, a strange thought crossed his mind. What if it was real? What if it could do what she said? He imagined himself never aging, never weakening, never fearing loss. Then he imagined watching everyone he loved grow old and disappear. Alone, always alone. He stepped back from the table. "No," he said firmly, "that is not living." That night, Rami gathered every bottle, every brush, every jar from the table. He carried them outside to the small backyard. The moon hung quietly above him. He placed everything in a metal basin. "You thought this would protect you," he said softly to the empty air. He struck a match. For a second, he hesitated again. Then he dropped it. Flames rose slowly, licking at powders and creams. Smoke curled into the sky. The scent was sharp and bitter. Rami watched without blinking. "Beauty is not youth," he muttered. "It is truth." The fire burned until nothing was left but ash. He felt no magic, no wind, no whisper, just the quiet crackle of things ending. When it was done, he turned away. He did not look back. Months later, Rami began to speak differently when people talked about beauty. At a gathering one afternoon, a young man complained loudly. "My fiancée worries too much about wrinkles. She spent hours in front of the mirror." Rami looked at him carefully. Tell her she doesn't need to fight time, he said calmly. The young man laughed. Easy for you to say. No, he replied quietly. It isn't. The others noticed the weight in his voice and changed the subject, but Rami continued thinking. He understood something now that he hadn't before. Fear can make people build prisons that look like palaces. Zaria's prison was beautiful, smooth, admired, but it was still a cage. He sometimes wondered what would have happened if she had told him the truth before the wedding. Would he have stayed? He did not know, but at least the choice would have been honest. 1 year later, on the night that would have marked their anniversary, Rami returned to the quiet garden where they once sat Juva. The bench was still there. The sky looked the same. He sat down slowly. You wanted to never be alone, he said softly into the night. A cool breeze brushed past him. He closed his eyes. I forgive you, he added after a long pause, and I will never forget. He looked at his hands, strong, alive, aging naturally. There were small lines forming near his knuckles. He smiled faintly. That's how it should be, he whispered. Time moved forward. It always does. And somewhere in that quiet space between memory and acceptance, Rami finally understood the full weight of her mistake. Not all that glitters is gold, and no mask, no matter how perfect, can hide the truth forever. Years passed. Rami's hair slowly turned grey at the edges. Fine lines settled around his eyes. He did not hide them. Instead, he welcomed them. Each wrinkle felt earned. Each grey strand felt honest. Sometimes when he passed by a mirror, he would pause, not to adjust his face, but to study it. This is time, he would say quietly, and time is not the enemy. He never remarried quickly. He took his time learning people beyond their appearance. When he met women, he would ask deeper questions. What scares you? He would ask gently. What do you hide from the world? Some laughed at the seriousness of his voice. Others opened up slowly. He noticed something important. Almost everyone carried a mask. Some hid behind pride. Some hid behind wealth. Some hid behind silence. Zaria had hidden behind beauty. One afternoon, he visited her grave. The stone was simple. He placed a small flower beside it. You were not wicked, he said softly to the empty air. The wind moved through the trees quietly. You tried to stop time, but
He continued, but time was never your enemy. Fear was. He stood there for a long while before turning away. This time he did not feel anger, only understanding. In the end, Zaria's story became a quiet lesson carried in Rami's heart. Beauty fades, youth fades, but truth stands. Zaria had believed love depended on remaining flawless. She believed if she looked young enough, no one would leave her. But love built on illusion is fragile. The night her tears fell was the night her mask broke, and when the mask broke, so did the lie she had lived inside for decades. Rami learned something too. Love is not about freezing time. It is about walking through time together. Wrinkles, weakness, fears, and all. If Zaria had trusted him with her truth, perhaps their story would have been different. But fear speaks loudly to wounded hearts. And fear, when left unchallenged, can destroy the very thing it tries to protect. So, the lesson remains clear. Do not trade honesty for admiration. Do not trade truth for attention. And never build your life on a mask. Because one day, the mask will fall. And when it does, only the truth will remain. Thank you for watching, sweet folks. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on our sweet and captivating stories we weave in store for you on this channel. Also, tell us what you've learned and where you're watching from in the comment section. Your voice matters to us here. Stay and enjoy other stories on this channel. We remain the #1 sweetest African folktales. Love you, sweet folks.